critical thinker also says, if there was one thing you could change about new canon, what would it be? Really a loaded question for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, there's a lot of things. Off the bat, I know I say it a lot, but still, I really just wish they didn't kill Luke in episode 8. I wish they didn't kill Luke. That's still one that ever since I saw it the first time, still have been regretting it. I let it pass at first because I was waiting to see what they did in 9 with Luke, how they had that plan, right? Then now we know they didn't have a plan. That's just really frustrating because I think that could have changed the landscape of the sequel trilogy. If you had Luke as a mainstay part of the whole trilogy, you could have had his, redemption arc in The Last Jedi. It makes The Last Jedi work better personally to me if he survives because now he's learned from his mistakes. He's learned to become the Luke Skywalker of old. It was through Rey that he is redeemed, similarly to how, Vader's redeemed through him, that kind of thing, even though he never turns to the dark side. But like it's kind of these cycles, right? You could have him helping Rey lead the next generation of Jedi. The stuff with him and Kylo Ren being the connection, all of that. To me, that's one of the big glaring things specifically about the big stuff in Star Wars, the sequels, the films, the TV that I look at every time and I just wish they just went about it a different way. I think it's an ending that could have been magical had we had more, but the fact that we just get our first glimpse of the Luke Skywalker we wanted the entire movie and then he dies, I think that's what rubs personally me the wrong way and it rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And that's one thing I'll think of right off the bat. I mean, as for new canon, I just would prefer a bigger emphasis on books as well. I think if we're talking about structure of the way they put things out, I would just prefer more emphasis on story, more emphasis on books when it comes to that type of stuff. Like, let authors write what they want and tell creative and compelling stories. Don't tell them the story they have to tell. And that's kind of what we've been doing mostly in canon. They've used the effort of canon as the excuse, right? Oh, we don't want things to contradict each other. So that's the reason we're not letting these authors go big with story. But now we've seen with the High Republic, it can be done very successfully. Let people tell important stories and then we'll work around them, right? So I think that's something for me, just in general, about the way Disney has approached canon as a whole that I would change if I could, but that is something that can change, so it's not too late. But the Luke thing, Luke dying to me was something I'm still wishing didn't happen because I would have just loved to see that version of Luke that we get at the end of The Last Jedi continue for one more film.
Yeah, I mean, I know I don't necessarily disagree. I'm fine with the ending still, but I think they could have definitely used more Carrie Fisher footage from The Last Jedi instead of just JJ using Force Awakens stuff. I like 8 for what it does for Luke. I just hate how 9 doesn't have him haunting Kylo. You can still have that big important scene with Rey and make that his centerpiece, but you need to have him be the annoying, like, irritant to Kylo that makes him almost be pushed to the light side because of the things that evokes. Maybe like Luke can almost cause him to have like forced memories of like his childhood and flashbacks and stuff like that. You gotta almost, and they kind of do it in Allegiance comics, but those are not very good at all. There's way more that you could have done with 9, keeping it basically the same as it is, and you still have Mark Hamill really get to play out his whole version of Luke that he still believes in, right? To finally get to my point, I do think the one thing that Disney should have done differently is you already saw how successful they were when they started the Marvel Comics to relaunch, right? With all the original trilogy characters. There's some awesome stories that are told in 2015 line. It just doesn't make sense to me that they didn't do books. They didn't do stuff with Luke's Jedi Order. If you're gonna deal, especially after 8, you're like, oh my god, what happened? Like, well, then he changes back to the version that we're more familiar with. Let's see a little bit more of the backstory. I again, you have a huge 30-year gap. I understand you don't want to flesh out a lot of this stuff right away, but the Jedi Order stuff, I mean, at least get some stories in play here. Write a bunch of stories about him starting the formation of his Jedi Order, and then you can jump into a animated TV show today where you're seeing it like, oh, Ben is now a bit more of like a teenager, and now we're starting to focus a little bit more on him. Kind of how like the Jedi Academy trilogy was like, where he's recruiting all these different people, and he gets to showcase incredible powers and showcase what he's learned, where his gaps are, but what he's still trying to do. You could still see so much of that optimistic Luke. I don't understand why we didn't even get a couple of books or anything when we got so much comics of the original trilogy characters. To me, that never made any sense. And I know it kind of connects to Liam's point about like, they're really worried about canon. They don't want stories that have the potential of being overwritten. Sure. But do we really need to see every minute detail at the very beginning of Luke's order, or do we want to see more of it like as it's really progressing and it's evolving? I think there's way more richer storytelling when he starts to finally face the challenges, or at least the first steps towards the challenges that undo the Jedi Order, that do lead into Ben's struggles, that do lead to Ben's seduction and all that. When you don't show any of that, and then Nine fails to do anything with him, like trying to be that good guy that's trying to pull Ben back before Leia truly succeeds. Come on, that's what frustrates me. Honestly, the biggest thing that the sequels and just Star Wars should have done in general, one big flashback scene with the original trilogy characters, or at least have all of them show up in the sequels together. It doesn't even have to be big. It could have been even like the last shot that we got with Luke could have been replaced with Han, Luke, and Leia just a little earlier in the film. And I think people would have been cheering, like just like how they did when they saw Han and Chewbacca, and seeing like a little bit different parts of their lives and like what keeps them separated, but what ultimately brings them back together again and again and again.
And I think the sequels as a whole are something that I think almost everybody would wanna do differently if we're talking specifically about the entire structure and all of that. Like I said before, that the sequels aren't really sequels, they're reboots with legacy characters in them, requels, that's the direction they went. That was the direction George was gonna go too. It was gonna center around the grandkids, but if they wanted to do a true sequel, you'd have the first film be all Han, Luke, and Leia with these side characters. In the second movie, the side characters get more agency. They start to take over a bit for Han, Luke, and Leia. And the third movie, the side characters are almost co-leads, and Han, Luke, and Leia are kind of passing the torch. That would have been an ideal way to doing it. Hello there, Star Wars Lads fans. Thank you so much for watching this video. This was actually a clip from one of our live streams and Q&As. So if you'd like to join us every single Tuesday around 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, make sure you join us. It'll allow you to ask a question that might be turned into a video. Hopefully you join us. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below all of your thoughts on this clip. Thanks for watching, and we will see you all next time.